Ilia Topuria is now the official #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC after a brutal first-round knockout over Charles Oliveira at UFC 317. The Georgian superstar stepped into the octagon for the UFC lightweight title and didn't waste a second flatlining a former champion in just 2.5 minutes. One clean, thunderous right hand sent Oliveira crashing to the canvas unconscious, with the fight waved off instantly. The moment wasn't just about becoming a two-division champ. It was the kind of dominant, explosive performance that shook up the entire sport. That KO catapulted him past names like Islam, Makhachev, and Merab Dvalishvili. And it's hard to argue with it, at least right now. El Matador's performance was as clean and devastating as it gets. And in this moment, he deserves that #1 spot. Sure, if Islam Makhachev dominates Jack Della Maddalena and captures the welterweight title to become a two-division champion, he's almost guaranteed to reclaim the #1 pound-for-pound spot. But for now, the crown belongs to Topuria. Speaking of pound-for-pound, the #3 ranked Merab Dvalishvili just went on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani and revealed an interesting story. According to the bantamweight champ, Topuria knocked him down twice during sparring. Here's what Merab said. "Man, I can't spar with him anymore because he hits hard. He hits too hard. Yeah, he's a big boy now. I wasn't here. Otherwise, I would like to train with him. But I was meaning before, transpired before. And, yeah, he dropped me 2 times from body shots. Thank God my head is fine. And then every time I finished sparring with him, I was happy. Thank God it's over. He's very good, very organized. He's getting better. He's special. Man, I don't know. He's so smart." Meanwhile, Khamzat Chimav's longtime rival Caio Baralho is back in the headlines, this time for picking against Chimaev ahead of his massive UFC 319 title showdown with Dricus du Plessis. The beef between these two goes way back. At one point, their training footage leaked online, showing what appeared to be Chimaev submitting CAO during a grappling exchange. Of course, it's just training and doesn't tell the full story, but it still added fuel to the fire. Things got heated after that, with both fighters trading shots online. At one point, there were real talks of the two squaring off before Khamzat was matched up with DDP. Now, with Chimaev set to fight for the middleweight title, Caio was asked to give his prediction, and unsurprisingly, he's riding with Dricus du Plessis. What makes this more interesting is that Caio has actually trained with both guys. While his opinion carries some weight, it's also clear there's still plenty of bad blood between him and Khamzat. The MMA world is completely split when it comes to this fight. Some fans and fighters are backing Chimaev's raw explosiveness, while others are siding with DDP's grit, durability, and ability to thrive in chaos. Caio said in an interview with Golasab MMA, "Right now it's very hard to bet against. DDP, I've always picked against him, and he's always shut me up. I think this fight could potentially end just as quickly as Khamzat's fight against Whitaker. But if the fight lasts more than 2 rounds, that's going to play into Dricus' hands. It's very hard for me to say, but I really want to see this fight. But do you even understand DDP's style? No one understands it. What I do understand is that he's a man, a fighter with a big heart. He always applies pressure, and he never stops. Even if he's tired, he never stops. He just keeps coming and coming and coming. And that's his biggest advantage. The main thing is not to make mistakes when you're fighting him because he catches you on a mistake and takes advantage of it." After his devastating knockout win over Charles Oliveira, Ilia Topuria spoke with Spanish journalist Pablo Legaspi and dropped major info about what's next, starting with what Dana White told him after the fight. He also fired shots at both Arman Tsarukyan and Paddy, claiming they're scared and probably won't accept the fight. Let's be real. Paddy's confidence is through the roof, so it's hard to imagine him turning the fight down. Sure, Paddy's hands aren't on Ilia's level, not even close, but confidence has never been his issue. The fighter El Matador has been circling for weeks now is Ilia Makhachev. Even after UFC 317, while walking out of the post-fight press conference with 2 belts on his shoulders, Topuria joked that he thinks there's space for a 3rd one, hinting that he's aiming to become a 3-division champ. I think there's space for another. But everything now hinges on what happens between Islam and Jack Della Maddalena. If Islam dominates JDM and becomes a 2-division champ, he'll likely stay at welterweight and focus on title defenses, making a fight with Topuria less likely, at least for now. Ironically, if Islam loses to JDM, then things open up. Makhachev has said he plans on staying at welterweight. But a loss might change that, bringing him back down to lightweight and making Ilia versus Islam much more possible. According to Topuria, Dana White completely shut down the idea of Islam Makhachev being his next opponent. Honestly, after the talks I've had with the UFC, it's clear they're not interested in seeing me move up to welterweight to face Islam. That fight's basically been shut down from their side. I'd be shocked if they called and said they want that next, but I'll still be watching. If Islam beats Jack Della Maddalena and decides to drop back down, I'll gladly give him the shot. But if he loses and tries to come back, yeah, there's absolutely no chance. The Paddy Pimblett fight would be the easiest to make before year's end. He last fought in April in Miami. Ilia says he's ready for the end of the year. If the UFC wants it, if Paddy wants it, which is the important part. It's one thing to talk and say you want it. Then there's the Arman technique Brit to be injured and complaining about your back. Arman was there too, and honestly, he looked scared. He had that shocked look when he saw the KO, like, wow, I was the backup fighter for this. Thank God Charles made it. He seemed surprised. He made weight as a backup, maybe hoping he'd be called in. He always makes weight when he knows he's not going to fight. But when he knows it might actually happen, then suddenly it's, oh, my back. His brain sends a signal straight to his back, and we all know how that ends. Joe Rogan is fully behind the idea that Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev should have happened, calling it the fight to make when it was still a possibility earlier this year. Topuria vacated his featherweight title and set his sights on a massive showdown with Makhachev. The hype was real. The timing made sense. Fans were all in, but instead of staying at lightweight, Islam chose to move up and is now set to fight Jack Della Maddalena for the welterweight belt, officially vacating his 155 lb title. Speaking during the UFC 317 broadcast, Rogan couldn't help but reflect on what could have been. I think Islam is the fight, Rogan said, with DC immediately agreeing. Rogan continued, saying, if I were the matchmaker at the time, I would have picked up the phone and made that fight happen. You could tell Rogan felt like the UFC let a super fight slip through their fingers. He even joked that maybe it was just a matter of money. Is there a number we can do? What do you think, fight fans? How interested are you in the potential Ilia versus Islam mega fight? The fire's still alive, but it might be dimming with each passing card. Meanwhile, Paddy Pimblett waits in the wings talking, big training harder, and one phone call away from stepping into a storm he may not survive. One thing is certain, Dana White has spoken. Islam versus Topuria isn't next. But in the unpredictable world of the UFC, one brutal performance or shocking upset could flip everything overnight. The dust from UFC 317 had barely settled, and already the speculation was boiling over. Ilia Topuria's breathtaking knockout of Charles Oliveira wasn't just a highlight reel moment. It sent shockwaves through the lightweight division and beyond. Suddenly, the question on everyone's lips wasn't just about who he would fight next, but whether he'd leap straight into the stratosphere of pound-for-pound dominance. The natural contender everyone wanted to see was Islam Makhachev. After all, Makhachev has been a pillar of the lightweight scene, his grappling and tactical mastery earning him steady respect and a steady climb up the rankings. But after his recent announcement to fight Jack Della Maddalena for the welterweight belt, the logistics became more complicated. Could Makhachev, the reigning lightweight champion, really shift weight classes just to face Topuria? Would Dana White approve? Topuria himself was surprisingly candid about the situation in his post-fight interview with Pablo Legaspi. When asked about the potential matchup with Islam, Ilia shrugged off the idea, revealing that UFC officials were not interested in him moving up to welterweight. Honestly, after the talks I've had with the UFC, it's clear they're not interested in seeing me move up to welterweight to face Islam. That fight's basically been shut down from their side. I'd be shocked if they called and said they want that next, Topuria said. But I'll still be watching. If Islam beats Jack Della Maddalena and decides to drop back down, I'll gladly give him the shot. But if he loses and tries to come back, yeah, there's absolutely no chance. With the Islam route looking increasingly unlikely in the short term, another name was gaining traction. Paddy Pimblett, the Liverpool brawler known as the Paddy, has built a reputation for electrifying fights and a magnetic personality that commands attention. While his striking isn't as polished as Topuria's, his confidence and charisma are undeniable, and a showdown between the two would generate enormous buzz. Topuria was quick to dismiss other contenders like Arman, accusing him of avoiding the fight and pretending to be injured. This kind of mind game isn't unusual in the sport. but it only added more fuel to the rivalry. On social media, fans and analysts debated fiercely. Joe Rogan himself weighed in during the UFC 317 broadcast, saying, "I think Islam is the fight," a sentiment echoed by Daniel Cormier. The idea of Topuria versus Makhachev was seen by many as a clash of styles and a true test of supremacy in the division. But with Makhachev's eyes set on the welterweight crown and Dana White's reluctance to sanction the bout at a higher weight, fans may have to wait longer than anticipated for this dream matchup. Meanwhile, the bantamweight champion, Morab Dvalishvili, who Topuria knocked down twice during sparring sessions, praised Ilia's power and skill, acknowledging just how special the Georgian superstar is. As all eyes watch these developments, the UFC's lightweight division is poised for more fireworks. Whether it's a clash of styles against Pimblet or the long-anticipated super fight with Makhachev that everyone hopes will one day happen, stay tuned, because in the world of MMA, nothing stays certain for long. The landscape of the UFC lightweight division was shifting faster than anyone expected. After UFC 317, Ilia Topuria had emerged not just as a champion, but as a genuine contender for the greatest pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Yet the question of who would step into the octagon with him next had become a complex puzzle, one fueled by politics, egos, and the unforgiving business of MMA matchmaking. On one side stood Islam Makhachev, the methodical champion eyeing a welterweight crown. His scheduled clash with Jack Della Maddalena had all the makings of a title-defining moment. And if Islam secured that victory, he would firmly cement himself as one of the sport's elite multi-division champions. The implications for a Topuria versus Islam fight were clear. A unification of legacies and a grudge match that could eclipse any other lightweight battle in recent memory. But with Islam's trajectory pointing upward and Dana White's firm stance against Topuria moving up to welterweight, the super fight seemed destined for the future, if at all. Dana had his reasons: logistical challenges, the integrity of division rankings, and the delicate balance of marketable fights to consider. Enter Paddy Pimblet. The baddie had made no secret of his desire to face Topuria. His outspoken confidence and relentless self-belief had earned him a massive following. Despite his less refined striking, Paddy's willingness to fight anyone, anywhere, at any time made him a fan favorite. And after Topuria's jab at both Paddy and Arman Tsarukyan, accusing them of fear, the media circus intensified. Social media exploded with speculation. Some argued Paddy was outmatched, a flashy underdog who'd be dismantled by Topuria's technical precision. Others saw a classic clash of styles, the mercurial brawler against the cold assassin, and couldn't wait to see fireworks. Meanwhile, the psychological warfare escalated. Paddy posted videos of intense training sessions, promising to bring a storm when the fight happened. Topuria countered with calm confidence, brushing off the banter but never backing down. Behind the scenes, Dana White was weighing his options. The Islam fight was on hold, and the Paddy matchup was easier to book. From a business standpoint, it was a fight that promised excitement, intrigue, and big pay-per-view numbers. Yet Arman Tsarukyan remained a wild card. The Armenian contender, frustrated and overlooked, was known for his fierce determination and high-level grappling. His quiet hunger for a title shot was palpable, and his presence added a third dimension to the conversation surrounding Topuria's future. In interviews, Arman didn't shy away from criticism. He called out both Topuria and Paddy, hinting at the fractures in the lightweight hierarchy. His persistence made it clear he wasn't waiting on invitations. He was coming for what he believed was his. As the UFC navigated these shifting sands, the lightweight division's next chapter promised to be one of the most captivating yet. Whether it would be Topuria facing Makhachev taking on Pimblet or dealing with Tsarukyan's challenge, fans were certain of one thing: the era of uncertainty was over, and the era of chaos was about to begin. As rumors swirled and fans debated, Dana White finally broke his silence on Ilia Topuria's next opponent. The UFC president's statement sent ripples through the MMA world, confirming what many suspected but few wanted to admit. The fight against Islam Makhachev was officially off the table for now. In a rare, candid interview, Dana laid it out plainly: Ilia's a killer, no doubt about it, but we're not moving him up to welterweight just yet. Dana said, Islam's focused on his welterweight run, and honestly, it makes sense for him to stay there right now. So the next fight for Topuria, it's going to be Paddy Pimblet. We think it's a fight the fans want to see, and it's the fight that makes the most sense right now. The announcement stirred a storm. Supporters of Topuria felt the fight with Pimblett was a necessary stepping stone away for Ilia to prove he can handle pressure from a dangerous, unpredictable opponent. Pimblett's fans, however, took it as validation of their man's rise and a chance for Paddy to claim an even bigger spotlight. Yet, not everyone was pleased. Arman Tsarukyan, feeling slighted by the decision, intensified his campaign for a title shot. "I've been ready for this for a long time," Arman said in a recent press conference. "I'm not afraid of anyone. I want my shot, and I'm coming for that belt. Let the UFC know, not waiting." Meanwhile, behind the scenes, tensions were boiling over between camps. Topuria's team accused Tsarukyan's camp of playing politics and avoiding tough fights, while Pimblett's camp promised their fighter would bring a storm no one was ready for. Training camps ramped up their intensity. Ilia retreated to a secluded gym in Spain, focusing on precision striking and cardio, while Paddy turned to his coaches in Liverpool to sharpen his grappling and mental toughness. Dana White, always the showman, hinted that the UFC was preparing for one of the most explosive lightweight showdowns in years. "This fight is going to sell itself. Both these guys have everything to prove. And believe me, when they step into that cage, it's going to be war." The stakes couldn't be higher. Topuria's reign as #1 pound for pound hung in the balance, while Pimblett saw this as his chance to catapult himself into the elite. For the fans, the anticipation was electric. Would Topuria continue his reign of destruction? Could Pimblett's heart and unpredictability topple the new king? And what about Islam and Arman? Would they silently watch, or would they explode onto the scene with their own claims to greatness? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. The UFC lightweight division was entering its most volatile, thrilling chapter yet. Fight week arrived with a buzz unlike any before. Media day was electric, fueled by sharp words, steely stares, and undeniable tension. Ilia Topuria arrived calm but focused, his gaze locked on the prize ahead. His performance at UFC 317 was a benchmark, but now every fighter in the division was watching, ready to see if he could withstand Paddy Pimblett's relentless pressure. Paddy, the cocky underdog, came in full of swagger and bravado. His interviews were peppered with promises to put the king to sleep and calls for the fans to expect fireworks. He was ready to seize his moment, and he made no secret of it. The press conference was a war of words. Topuria fired back at Pimblett's boasts with measured confidence. Pimblett responded with fiery insults, turning up the heat and making the world take notice. Behind the scenes, the UFC scrambled to handle the surge of interest. Pay-per-view sales skyrocketed. Social media exploded with predictions, memes, and debates. But beyond the spectacle, the lightweight division's landscape was shifting dangerously. Islam Makhachev's upcoming fight with Jack Della Maddalena promised to reshape the welterweight scene. A win there for Islam would solidify his legacy and potentially close the door on a future bout with Topuria, at least for now. Arman Tsarukyan, meanwhile, continued his push. Rumors surfaced of secret training footage, showing him sharpening skills that could challenge anyone. His impatience was growing, and whispers suggested he was willing to shake up the rankings sooner than expected. As fight night approached, tension reached a boiling point. In the final stare-down, Topuria and Pimblett exchanged icy glares that promised a brutal war. When the cage door slammed shut, the world would be watching. Would Topuria's precision and power prevail, or would Pimblett's heart and unpredictability spark an upset? The stakes were immense: legacy, pride, and the chance to control the lightweight division's future. And as the fight clock ticked down, the UFC stood on the edge of a new